Welcome everyone to the Inti Hub's 10x webinar. My name is Novel Cahyadi. I'm the CEO and founder of Inti Hub and your webinar host today. 10x webinar is a platform where we will have dialogues about the future, innovation, emerging technologies, exponential organizations, as well as future-proof leadership. So a little bit about Inti Hub. We are an innovation and exponential transformation specialist who partner with leaders and organizations to help them navigate through disruptive innovation and future transformation to achieve business results that matter the most for them. Our services include corporate innovation advisory, exponential and digital transformation, future-ready capability building, as well as transformation leadership coaching. So if any of you are thinking of doing a kickstart or jumpstart innovation within your organization, so you can always reach out to us. And please check out our website for some of our unique programs. So let me start by giving you the definition of deep tech, deep technology. So what is deep tech? It was actually a term coined in 2014 by an Indian investor and entrepreneur, Swati Chaturvedi. The term deep tech technology refers to fundamental discoveries in science and engineering innovations that offer significant advances over existing technologies. So deep tech companies promise solutions in a wide range of fields using technologies such as big data, artificial intelligence, deep learning, blockchain, biotechnology, nanotechnology, and so on, with a more scientific approach than is typically seen at tech companies covered by the media these days. So they are not the digital companies that have grown the most in recent years, like Facebook or Spotify, and they are not based on innovative business models like Uber or Airbnb, where they are based on the sharing economy, for instance. So instead, they solve problems through meaningful scientific or technology developments. So you will see the difference there. In addition to their goal of changing the world, deep tech companies are an attractive investment opportunity. Deep tech investments still carry risk, but their low valuations can provide significant returns as well. So having said that, deep tech is the next big thing. It promises solutions to the biggest problems that the world faces today. And according to Boston Consulting Group, in 2018, nearly 18 billion US dollars was privately invested in deep tech companies around the world. And this interest shows no significance of cooling off. In fact, investment in deep technology has increased by over 20% year on year since 2015. So in today's webinars, we're going to explore more about deep tech, why it matters to all of us, and what constitutes a successful deep tech ecosystem. And today it's my pleasure to introduce to you our storyteller, Dr. Alfred Boediman. And he's a very good friend of mine and my high school mate also. Dr. Alfred Boediman is a managing director of Samsung Research, who has implemented changes to answer business and technology needs across some areas in the software research and telecommunications sectors. Dr. Boediman is also an adjunct professor at the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business Asia Campus and some other universities, including Institute of Technology of Bandung, ITB in Bandung. He holds degrees from University of Indonesia, Freie Universiteit Brussels. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Freie Universiteit.
Rochester Institute of Technology in the States and University of Chicago. So, well, a long list of degrees, of course, right? He is also an advisor for the Polski Center for Entrepreneurship in the University of Chicago Asia Campus. He is an author with a number of published books, among other financial mathematics and engineering journals. During his free time, he enjoys activities like Vespa riding, biking, archery, and cooking. Interesting, actually. Anyway, bro, Alfred, welcome, and thank you very much for being with us today, man.
Welcome.
Let me start by asking you. Here we're
Sure.
talking about deep tech. So
Hmm.
maybe for the benefits of me and the audience to understand more about the definition of deep technology. So what are the characteristics of deep tech companies?
Well, thank you, Novel. I mean, hi everyone as well. So actually, it's already being explained by a Novel about what is deep tech characteristic and as terminology itself, though. Well, I'm going to explain later on as well a bit in my slides. But in overall, from my understanding as a researcher wannabe, so deep tech is like kind of a journey. It's like kind of discovery process of innovation.
Mhm.
So and how to differentiate with the common technology because it can be comprised with the various of technologies or even modified the business processes to create more massive effect in terms of new opportunity and to the mass market.
Right.
So that's kind of the understanding now. So if you see the sample itself, probably deep tech technology, it's using the various technology that comprising like AI, algorithms model in terms of motion sensors and things like that. So that kind of things that leveraging the values of the business itself. So that's why if you're asking any kind of startups that are evolving in deep tech, that's already quite a lot. And how to differentiate that, they still doing some evolution of evolving in terms of research.
Must they always leverage the existing technologies, right? Or
Yes.
they can invent new technologies?
They can invent a new technology. It can come from it can come from the existing technology, but a new process, the
Yeah,
new innovation of process.
yeah,
So it's not only about the technology itself. It's not only always about the products.
sure. Okay,
So that's
interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's all about the journey, the customer journey, impact, massive impact, like you said, right?
Look at you can see that working from home basically involves a lot of online meetings and webinars, right?
Mhm.
Well, kind of new trends these days. So what will be the effective ways to share information? For me, I just have about 20 minutes to share a bit about deep tech and a little 7 simple slides. And I'm really looking forward to have more interaction and discussion with you guys a bit later, though. So
Sure.
basically, what I'm trying to explain here about in the current situation, COVID-19 crisis bring a competitive and societal discontinuity. So, the current crisis is forcing us to focus on surviving brutal next year or two. So it's also accelerate existing trends that will shape medium long-term collaboration, especially in deep tech development. Again, what is deep tech meaning? Basically, deep tech terminology, as being mentioned earlier by Novel and what I mentioned earlier, is on the scientific discoveries or innovation. It comes from the various of technology comprise about computer processing, electronic computing, algorithms model for image, language recognition, motion sensors, and many others, basically. However, there's still a question that deep tech can only be as like a marketing jargon for a technology that only slightly more complex. Then wondering, how is deep tech different from other technology? Well, again, you can see, and as explained earlier, in daily life, from the various technology like artificial intelligence, cloud solution, blockchain, omni-channel like virtual reality, augmented reality, and many others, something like that. So therefore, deep tech has innovation that differentiate them from the companies that focus on commercial standard technology and using business model innovation to create basically new opportunities. So in the right hand slide in here, you can see this success and failure stories of deep tech investment, like what was happened globally in SoftBank Vision Fund as they invested in various technology startups. Well, it was mentioned earlier by Novel that BCG invested quite a lot of sum of money, but so it will be an interesting use case if that situation happened in emerging country startups with this macro trend exploration in deep tech areas. You can see any risk, cognitive, exponential intelligence. So that kind of values will be something that's challenging in the emerging countries. Anyway, let's move to the next slide. Um, so In this slide, basically, I would like to share a bit from a lot of deep tech teams. I'm just trying to like make it the best top three in terms of deep tech teams, especially that happen in the new normal situation. Number one, I can categorize as a cloud adoption. So basically, whenever you can find it in the internet, everything become virtual and stay in the cloud. And somehow, the pandemic demonstrated two of cloud biggest benefits. There is a pressure on digital infrastructure, right? Cloud support business continuity in times of crisis, data in the cloud that enable rapid adoption for the new challenges. So basically, cloud prove its value through the speeds of deploying new application and solution, or somehow we probably commonly heard that as a cloud computing. But there is two real game changers that cloud delivers during the shutdown. Number one, I can probably measure that as the ability to set up the new cloud-based solution when the new on-premise data center was not accessible. Number two, fast access real-time data to influence rapid decision during these uncertain times. Now, try to consider the business continuity side of the equation, especially during the pandemic situation. If the data upload fails, so a webcam doesn't work and connection drops, the patient could suffer. That's pretty much sample if you see the model of the telemedicine use case. So because all the activities taking place in the cloud, all the necessary data to fix the problem also in the cloud. Somehow, in the next few years, may lead to a lot of stop and starts when cases or when the virus again spikes. There's never been a better time to move to the cloud and take your data with you. Many sample of that, although there's a lot of challenges and security and privacy of the or data, especially in many in emerging countries. So let's move to the next slide here. So in this slide, I would like to explain a bit this year, 2020, it's setting up to be an e-commerce inflection year. Lower spend on experiences like travel, dining out, entertainment, bar, movies, and many others, something like that. Indeed, in here, government stimulus driven the transaction, everything's online. In the chart one, probably you can see like while the world is now reopening, we expect this bucket of available transaction and the structured e-commerce behavior changes are expected. So retail and travel spend to decline and aggregate about maybe around 15 to 20% in the second half of the year. Therefore, there's a lot of retail stores that potential to be closed this year. And that's happened not only in developed country, but also in many emerging country. Even recently, I just heard from the news, like South Korea, I just mentioned to Novel earlier, they declare they're starting to be having recession. And in the right chart, you can see that what I can show that the case that's showing Indonesia e-commerce business is growing as the new habit online transaction. In the second chart about the e-commerce trends, basically about the fintech digital payment, e-commerce trends have been a strong thought of the most of pandemic, benefiting on the store closing down, social distancing effort. This has been shifted in the spans, how to occur on the POS level. So likely cash and toward credit and debit card, something like that. So therefore, digital wallets broadly benefiting from shifting to online as the consumer looks for feature one click or to simplify their online shopping experience. Contactless payment like enabled through digital wallet like Samsung Pay or even Apple Pay and many others, it has a greater adoption with the concern of the cleanliness and the hygiene. So I haven't seen any evidence that recent adopters of contactless payment will revert back to the SWIFT or chip-based transaction. Well, I haven't seen anything yet though, from my experience. So these things actually suggest more permanent shift to the POS, spend more to digital wallets that I have mentioned earlier. And again, in here, e-commerce and fintech domain, digital data is a fuel to drive the business insight and competitive advantages. Somehow, I mean, we are in the early innings of deep tech innovation with the long decade about this data focused technologies like AI, machine learning, automation, and IoT. So these things will support in many kind of areas, especially in here what I try to explain about e-commerce and fintech. Let's move to the next slide. What I'm trying to explain more likely about the health tech, the second themes that probably quite interesting and as a the best top three. In this slide, I just want to share a bit about the health tech. It becomes very important focus as a growing on the smart health communities. Deep tech basically has a potential to bring this program to scale up and increasing the impact. Many intelligent platforms developed by these communities of the smart health and technologies. Therefore, they can use the data fuel technologies such as IoT, AR, and VR and make timely informed decisions. In this chart, in the right-hand slide chart, I just want to show a sample case of the healthcare adoption in Asia. Basically, current traditional healthcare ecosystem model is very inconvenient for patients. It's the traditional supplier-oriented, volume-driven, and a high-touch model. Well, there are a common approach to elevate that. Let's say, number one, I can see like in this situation, increase awareness for digital health and wellness through deep tech implementation. So basically people showing the usage of wearable devices, health apps, health data, and any kind of convergent related AI for health. Second, can see that the telehealth market expansion and the usage of communication technology. Well, communication vendor role become crucial with healthcare in the market that traditionally evolved in the in-person interaction. And the last in here, the new health tech startup is growing. Somehow, well, changes in the regulatory attitudes may provide opportunity for the tech companies to establishing the positioning in the healthcare. So that's from the health situation. So let's move to the next slide. What I'm trying to overcome about what I mentioned earlier to Novel, part on the deep tech evolution actually is relevant with the research and development. In here, I would like to make a sample case about R&D situation in the emerging countries, especially in Indonesia case. In this slide, I just want to share a bit about situation that supporting deep tech ecosystem. Well, Indonesia deep tech research competitiveness somehow is still very basic due to low innovation capability because of the quality of research body that came from the government or from in private or industry itself, the amount of funds for research, any collaboration between the university, industry, government, communities, or we call them as a pentahelix collaboration. And significantly, research focus in Asia still in the area of commercial research, even for the deep tech community's journey. So then, where is Indonesia now? Do you think Indonesia ready for the campaigning Indonesia Next 4.0? Well, I believe that Indonesia is the largest and the fastest growing internet economy in ASEAN, right? So this growth is driven by its young population, with the average of age of 29 and probably about around 60% under 40. And deep tech adoption in Asia still very high demand. So I called them as a big opportunities. And this is related with the next slide that I'm trying to convey. Actually, is my well, in this slide, I just want to tell about how these companies, it's a local Indonesian company, when they start to learn about the market growth in Indonesia, they apply deep tech as part of the solution. Indeed, they're trying to increase their business valuation though. Anyway, deep tech startups or these companies must help to solve many problems basically in the current pandemic situation and provide the society with the necessary resources to adopt the new normality. I mean, there are many companies, Indonesian startup companies like in EduTech, Ruang Guru, probably you heard about that. FinTech area, Coinworks, and in AI for image computing like NodeFlux and many others. They are starting and growing in the ecosystem and trying to do a lot of mass market deployment because there's a lot of companies that having a good momentum through their technology solution. Meanwhile, there are a lot of others that also have major impact in their business, especially in the current pandemic situation, or maybe longer because of, for example, like in the hospitality or any kind of service. But anyway, so I think I'm trying to a bit closing to have a short close of my this sharing. So for my closing, basically, the agile nature of deep tech startups means they can act fast, especially in the face of the current pandemic situation. But beyond deep tech jargon that we have to know about these days, we have also become more human in the breakthrough and the create environment friendly business friendly business. Well, in other words, engineer of the future will work with computer programs or technology more than ever before, but they also, I believe, more than we can call upon their skills to make them as a human. So again, thank you for listening, and I think that let's having more sharing and learning together. So I think that I'm opening more discussion with Novel or anybody that would like to know about kind of deep technology.
Yeah.
Thank you from me.
Well, thank you so much, Alfred. So everyone, so you're now free to ask any questions or maybe you have any comments or feedback. I have a question for you, Alfred. It's quite intriguing to see the e-commerce adoption graph. To me, it looks a little bit counterintuitive. When you look at this
Yes.
COVID-19 pandemic and you think that people will go online, right? And they will go, they will shop online, but there's a significant drop of 20% of the adoption.
Yeah.
Why do you think is that?
Yeah. Well, that the things actually is depending on the case. I mean, what is the online commerce that usually they engage to do the transaction? For example, I
Hmm.
mean, if there is an electronic shopping commerce, which is they're only selling the device set or probably like
Yeah,
television or any kind of merchandise, something like that, they might not have appealing because the things that actually growing the e-commerce transaction is big is really back to the bottoms of the pyramid,
right.
like food,
Hmm.
like medicine, like healthcare,
Hmm.
or any kind of things that support engaging to the human interaction. So even you probably see like people using masker or
Yeah,
mask, something like
yeah.
that, right? Or even people using like hand sanitizer. That market is growing. I mean, look at
So it
that.
becomes
People
the bottom of the hierarchy.
exactly,
The
exactly.
mask
I mean,
and the hand sanitizer,
but
right?
also it's actually it's become flattening at the end
Yeah,
of the day
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's become commonly used.
And actually, the other week I was doing the webinar, and we're discussing about how the customer needs keep changing during the COVID-19 pandemic. Sometimes they don't even know what they need apart from the basic foods, right? So for the
Yep.
startups, it is very important for them to stay close to their customers and responding to their ever-changing needs, basically. Now, also on the adoption of health tech, it's
Yep.
quite interesting because if you see Indonesia, now the number of health tech startups
Growing.
are growing, but I have a doubt in terms of the market adoption.
Well,
I think
actually,
it's still
everything is
challenging, right?
yeah. Again, it's for emerging countries, not only Indonesia. I believe if you see like probably like in even like in Cambodia or many kind of other
Yeah,
countries, uh, of course, there's a fear of this kind of health situation, this pandemic, is not only because of the virus itself, but also how to overcome that. It's also about the collaboration and the ecosystem,
mhm,
government and the society and the industry itself, right? Um, Uniquely, Indonesia is quite unique. Well, I can quote quite unique, even though that's the health tech is it's growing, it's flourishing, but you're talking about digital health, telemedicine, and everything. But beyond that, it need to have the layer called infrastructure.
right. Yes, yes. Mm,
The infrastructure in Asia is, or in many emerging countries, is still one of the challenging situation as well,
mm,
right? How you want to do like telemedicine, as I explained earlier, when the webcam connection, when this kind of augmented reality kind of things have a limited bandwidth capacity.
mm. Yeah.
or the connection drops.
Mm, mm.
So that's one of the things. Second, the data itself. In emerging countries, I mean, especially in Indonesia, the data still everywhere and cluttered. And this is something that massively government have huge homework. And I believe it's not only about a matter of 1 or 2 years or even one period of the presidential,
Yeah,
but it takes a long journey of
that's
evolution.
true.
I
Yeah,
believe it also evolving to the any kind of developed countries or big country as well, how to standardize the data, how to ensure the data itself, and this kind of data actually is related with the human interaction itself. How
mm.
is the data of patient? How the data of the I mean interaction between the hospital. So that kind of the things that can be one of the important
And
factors.
security,
And
privacy.
security.
Sorry, data
Yeah,
privacy.
yeah,
Yes, we
security,
talk
privacy
about
as well.
the health data, medical data
Yeah,
and stuff. So we're talking
yeah,
about privacy. All right,
yeah.
so we got a question from Ridi Ferdiana here. What does the university or students, for that matter, need to do to prepare for a deep tech journey? What should they learn as a basic?
Interesting question. Actually, it's happened when I went to the university and met with all the professor, and they asked to about research collaboration, or even they're talking about what your knowledge and the adoption of research of deep tech, such as of artificial intelligence. That's for example. One of the deep tech motivation, probably everybody knows the trend. We call it AI, right?
Mhm.
I mean, simple. Deep tech, as I said, is a journey in scientific discoveries. Back to the basic, fundamental science. Know
Right.
you know how to adapt yourself about mathematics, physics, and logics. Because deep tech is not something that you're learning about how to code. Deep tech is not something that you're learning. Hey, I know Java, I know C++, I know some skill set about this kind of things. This kind of programming languages actually is only a way of communication to the machine
Mm.
and how to interact that things and how to translate that. But beyond the logic, talking about the algorithm is the fundamental things that you know how to evolve yourself in deep tech variation of technology. Because this beyond this AI, beyond this IoT, machine learning, and others, actually is a bunch of algorithms and logic. So that's actually what I can answer though.
Well, thank you.
And it's yeah,
Yeah,
it's need a lot of learn.
yeah. Actually, it's quite surprising that you emphasize on the non-technical skill sets rather than a technology skill set, because these days people are like making a big buzz about the future-ready skills. So
Yeah,
kids are learning how to coding, and coding, right? So here you're
yeah.
emphasizing about the journey and the non soft skills, I would say.
No, that is a question as well, Novel. I mean, how you teach? I mean, probably you heard how you teach a kindergarten to learn AI.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have a basic of mathematics,
Hmm.
but they need to know about the logic,
Yeah. Yeah.
how to portray
You teach
the
them
knowledge.
logic.
Exactly. I mean, this
Yeah.
kind of logic is actually is came from the visualization as well,
Yeah.
and to teach your brain about to understanding about that, and
Mm.
it start coming from the numbers. It's
Mm.
coming about the visual kind of things.
Okay. Is
That's
it?
kind of actually one of the things, though.
Thank you, Alfred. This next question is actually quite relevant to what we discussed now, which is the skill set from Ivan, our friend,
Yeah.
Lawrence Ivan. How are you,
Yeah.
Ivan? What skill can be prepared for a company to encounter deep tech challenges?
Well, it's not necessarily about the skill. It's depending on the company itself, actually, right? I mean, if you're talking about the company, basically the company need to have like sensing.
Hmm.
Sensing is one of the things. Secondly, if the
Sorry, what do you mean with sensing? Sensing the market, customer
sensing is
needs
many
and
things.
everything. Okay.
Sensing came from the market. Sensing came from the usage.
Yeah.
Sensing
Okay.
came what is the problem. Sensing can be on the technology, and sensing also can be on the resources, right?
All right.
So if you're talking about deep tech itself, for deep tech that coming from the software, well, it's again the bottom line is actually fundamental science. That's what I'm going to repeat it and all repeat it again though. So if people want to prepare, it's actually is about they need to prepare the people first. That's number one.
Yeah.
And how to map the skill sets resources. Because if you want to prepare the skill set without knowing where the company want to go, biotech company and software technology company, it can be two different kind of things to prepare the skill set,
Mm, mm,
right?
yeah.
So that's definite answer that I can probably portray what I mentioned about sensing though.
Now, the next question coming from Tariq Sheikh. Tariq, hi, how are you doing? He's a friend of mine, a good friend of mine in Abu Dhabi. What is the engagement model of Samsung with deep tech startups? Do they work with deep tech invention for potential business applications?
Good question. Well, I actually have open conversation earlier with Novel about what is Samsung, right? Samsung basically is a device company, so everybody knows about that. It's currently involving quite heavy and deep in terms of technology, starting from the AI, starting from the IoT kind of
Yeah.
things, but everything that back to the device itself, either that called smartphone or any kind of consumer electronics. These days, actually, we realize the era of device, it will be more, I mean, cluttered in terms of the market itself.
Mm,
So we realize now we need to adapt and evolve with the collaboration. We do collaboration with the startups. We do collaboration with also with the universities, and we also do quite a lot of collaboration with many kind of industries as well now.
mm,
So this kind of collaboration is quite varied, various. And if you're talking about, for example, if you're talking about business, Samsung itself, we have also logistics. We have also in terms of supply chain
mm.
internally, how we supply and how we do the logistic and all the business process regarding when we do marketing our products, our devices. So these kind of things need partners, and how efficient we can do any kind of analytics, basically, um, when we can cut the middleman, for example, like that.
Yeah.
That kind of collaboration, of course, need to have emphasizing the model and the model of partnership. So because I don't think Samsung have the luxury to do everything by itself. I mean, none of the companies, the big companies can do all the supply chain by itself.
But no one can
They
do
need
it by
to, yeah,
themselves.
exactly.
You have to
So
collaborate.
they
That's why we're
need to do the
talking about the
partnership.
ecosystem, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So therefore, I think it needs to have like a, and these days, it's not only about talking about partnership, but also system.
Mm,
So this kind of deep tech of even what I can call as a data intelligence analytics software or something like that, that's quite necessarily to be put in place. Even a big company like Samsung, I mean, we are also like commonly using the cloud from AWS as a partners. We are using technology for data visualization like Tableau, something like that. We are using it,
yeah.
but beyond that, actually, we're trying to do something more practical, how to reach to the customer itself. So this is a challenge actually of big company like Samsung, how we reach our customer. Because honestly, I don't know whether Novel is using Samsung or not, but definitely
No,
it's
no,
one
no,
of the
no, no,
things.
no. iPhone.
Yeah, I know. Thank you very much. Actually, the chipset it came from Samsung. Anyway, but
I used to use Samsung, man, but I gave it up because the rest of
but
my family they use Apple, so it's like transferring the files at that time was a bit tedious.
it's fine. But again, I mean that's kind of the ecosystem collaboration need to be put in place. As I
Yeah,
said, I mean
yeah.
it cannot be only one in one party or two parties though.
We have a lot more questions here from Jafar Muhammad Umar. Hey Jafar, he's a friend of mine in Middlesex University. Do you think that in the future AI and machine learning will be available as a service that companies can simply plug into and use?
Yeah, the answer nobody knows.
Really? Is
Why?
that your bold prediction, Fred?
No, yeah. Because I'm actually writing a books, and soon it
Uh-huh.
will be published called Idiot Engineering.
All
So it's all about AI.
right.
So what I can say like that, I involved in AI research. It's more than 5 years.
Mm,
So I know it's still short journey, but I'm focusing only in particular area called natural language processing,
all right.
right? In the contextual, in
NLP.
terms of on device and emotional impact on the human. In that kind of area, it's still depending in the cloud base.
Mm,
Meanwhile, people right now um, doing any kind of AI, especially in the emerging countries or any kind of countries that having limited internet connectivities, expecting that AI happen on their device.
yeah.
That's what we call it on-device AI. So if you're talking about next time, AI can be in the cloud, yes, it's possible, but nobody knows because even the device like a smartphone in itself, I believe in the future, the next probably 10 years, it will be vanished. Why? Because everything's going to the cloud. Where the technology can be interact each other in terms of communication, they'll be
Mm,
injecting to the human, into the wearables or any kind of injected in the human body itself though. So AI actually is the portray of the brain, cognitive brain intellectual methods, what we call it neural nets, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So this kind of interesting methods actually still in the very early stage of any researchers that currently, probably you heard about Sophia.
Mm,
You probably heard about Sophia, right? So it's about the humanoid robotics that can smile and have also probably like the citizenship of UAE, right? So this kind of things actually it's a bunch of the electronic circuits and the methods of mechatronics to learn the pattern.
mm,
So analogically, you probably also heard the jargon of, hey, AI camera. Is that any of AI camera? It's a marketing jargon.
yeah. Yeah.
Why I can say like that? Because actually, what is in the back as a researcher, like for me, what I'm doing, we're trying to put like methods to graph your eyes,
Mm,
your nose, and your mouth as a triangle.
mm,
So when it smile, they can recognize, oh, this is man, or this is women. When there's women, you need to make it a skin white.
mm, mm,
When it's a man, you need to make it a bit more bright or some things. So that's kind of actually is it's not an AI. It's a pattern, right? It's a data pattern, right?
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that for me, AI itself is actually it's still in the very early stage though. So when
Mm,
you're talking about how AI later on and or machine learning can be adapted to the cloud, nobody knows. They're
yeah.
still trying to do that. Even Google, they're trying to claim themselves that they're trying to make a program, a code that can code or code itself. And that's kind of scary actually.
Yeah.
So these kind of things, if you probably heard about, and watched the movie from Terminator called Skynet. So
Which one?
probably
Sorry.
that
Skynet.
the movie called Terminator in Skynet,
Yeah.
Skynet, right?
Yeah.
So probably that will be the era of the AI that you probably we imagine the AI could be.
Okay.
But again, nobody knows.
Yeah. No one can have a bold prediction but,
Exactly. Yeah.
until now. Well, thank you so much, Fred. So we have more questions from Dr. Christian Eddy, our friend. Hi, Eddy, how are you? Dear Alfred, thank you for your sharing. In terms of deep tech ecosystem, what is the most fundamental thing that these startups in Indonesia to prioritize? Fundamental refers to the most down to earth and or the low hanging fruit, especially for them to be resilient and agile in the at least until the end of the 2020, given the the circumstances right now with the pandemic. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Eddie. I mean, basically, for the question, again, I also explained to you novel earlier, it's back to the bottoms of pyramid.
Hmm.
So if any kind of deep tech or any startup deep tech companies that can serve the bottoms of pyramids of the ecosystem on the value chain, for example, like healthcare, communication, um, education, um, food or e-commerce that related with food or any kind of retail, that will be probably still surviving
Right.
at least until 2020. But again, I think it's also depending on terms of the pentahelix collaboration ecosystem itself between the industry, the government, and the communities. Because um, even the startup itself, they cannot survive. I mean, the company is just like probably like Ruang Guru or whatever, something like that. If they don't have seen the opportunity, the education is become important and need to be have remotely uh, absorbed by the communities and the society, they might not flourish easily like that.
Hmm.
In this kind of momentum, it can be used. But the question is, how long is that the momentum is temporarily, or it can be sustained longer, or even become a new normal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When it become a new normal, definitely it's not on, we call it as a blue ocean anymore. It's a
Hmm.
red ocean.
Yeah.
So many companies will, a startup will be do the same. Right? And the technology may evolve.
Hmm.
Because the technology itself actually is not technology that's significantly new that being used, or that's why I call it slightly complex. But beyond that, to learn the data, to preserve the market with this kind of process or opportunity, can be called as a deep tech. That's called innovation.
Great. So the next one from our friend again, Bari Satyadi. Hey, Bari, how are you? Long time, man. Do you have any idea about correlated or implementation of deep tech in automotive industry? He's from automotive industry. He's got a company in automotive.
Well, Barry, thank you. I mean, I think that you should see our Uncle Elon. Well, well, you see, like in the automotive industry, everything's right now. Well, starting deep tech, starting probably if you see that in the automotive, it's starting from the Elon Musk, probably called Tesla. Well, they're trying to make it green fuel technology, which is everything through electric. That's one thing. But in more deeper, actually, Google also doing called driverless and with autonomous car,
Yeah.
right? Even BMW working with us with Samsung, we're trying to make it the autonomous and driverless autonomous car, with something that probably people seeing in the futuristic science fiction movie, but these things kind of things that happen mostly in the autonomous or car industry. But in the very near to the human engagement to the car industry, actually, it came from the IoT, which is interact between the human machine to machine. What I can call like that. For example, you want to start how to starter your car, not through the not through your eyes, but also trying to buy your voice.
Mm.
Probably you want to interact your car and knowing your car, basically where is the location through the geofencing, through the IoT itself. I mean, it's many various kind of things in deep tech, but the fundamental probably for the car industry, the easiest part, what I can categorize is came from the IoT. And second, probably about the AI itself, which is when it has a lot of data. For example, the efficiency in terms of the traction on the fuel set itself, how is the passenger safety kind of things, that kind of things that can be evolving
Yeah,
in the
all
car
the
industry.
accessories that come with that, the batteries and everything,
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are actually opportunities. Great. We have a question from Daniel from Cameroon. Hi, Daniel. Should deep tech be viewed as a new knowledge that continuously has to be added in the current knowledge in science and engineering innovations?
Well, actually, it's being answered previously by Novel when he presented about the deep tech terminology itself. But what I'm trying to refrain in here, deep tech is actually is basic on scientific discoveries. I would like to say that probably the journey of AI. Why AI is being flourished and being a hype of the trend these days. Actually, AI itself, when it has the historical, when it's being profound, it came from about around 100, 1000, 1969 when Alan Turing, right?
1960s, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's
1960s,
Alan
right?
Turing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, when Alan Turing found
or
about
before.
how, yeah, that's kind of things in terms of the how dissolve the encryption,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of discovery and innovation. It came from the various technologies. What if you're talking about, of course, the electronic computing, that's kind of things, automation, computer processing, algorithm models based for the image. I mean, again, for the language recognition, or even in the mechanical cold motion sensors. So, if you said that if whether deep tech can be applied to the science, deep tech is only terminologies. Even AI, the next 20 or 30 years probably is not a new trend. Is evolve. Probably you heard called singularity, right?
Yeah.
So how that can be evolved to the humanoid kind of things. So that's kind of the answer probably I can proclaim in terms of the science and technology though.
All right. Thank you, Alfred. Next one from Anti Antono, a very good friend of mine. Anti is now in London. She has a question. Data has exploded, and we're making progress in our capability to deal with this amount of data. But we also still need to cope with data wrangling, merging, large-scale computing, and etc. Can you talk a bit about where deep tech is taking us in the field of data analytics?
Good question,
Question.
Andy. Actually, it's everything that related with deep tech, especially in terms of if you learn about AI and kind of things,
Mhm.
is related with data. My research center actually focusing on the three areas: data intelligence, IoT, and AI localization. In terms of data intelligence, actually it's pretty much unique. It's not only about the statistics, but actually the evolving about how the data is being used. So it's kind of journey. We built the platforms. We did the data engineering itself, how to engineer the data from the tools that we use and have the platform that we develop. And how we presented the data itself. They presented the data, we need the data analysts or the data scientists. How to preserve that actually and to make it the data is to easily being visualized. Because anyway, nobody can hold the data. I mean, data is abstract, right? So the only things that data can be presentable is through the visualization. That's one of the things. And how the data itself to be transparent, to make it to other related with other things, actually it makes the things become more intelligence. There's still a lot of challenges in terms of data. I mean, from my part, actually, in the research, I can say that I'm much more doing quite a lot in terms of platform and engineering. But in data analytics itself, it's very challenging area because nobody can standardize the data. Even myself, I'm trying to standardize the heat map of my screen, what people touching where and what for. I have a lot of data from my locked devices, but I don't know how to translate that and to make my device become more intelligence. So this is still a journey, and I believe that in terms of data intelligence, it's still like evolving factors. It's depending on the cases, whether you're using KNN, whether you're using SVM, whether you're using Bayesian or something like that. Algorithm is depending on the use cases, though. So that kind of journey, it needs always a learning experience and always keep trying, though. Endurance is one of the things when you're learning about the data. So there's a lot of ocean of
So
data.
what do you
And
mean with
like,
the endurance? As part of the journey,
because
for the learning?
yeah, because for example, I mean, when you're having a lot of data, when you train the data, you train the data, and uh, you have the maximum in terms of the result, the outcome itself,
Yeah.
you need to keep retraining the data.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're retraining the data, it's need to have a lot of endurance. Why? Because you're always facing the new things, not the new things, the same things. When you're facing the same things, you need to always keep improving and training the data until you find the best performance on the best solution.
I see. I see. I got it.
That's kind of things, though.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. The next one up coming from Aris Hartono. How would you see new regulations will cope with deep tech or emerging technologies, considering that to really understand a new technology itself, such as AI and its possible use cases, is still a huge challenge?
In emerging countries like Indonesia, thank you, Aris. I mean, emerging country like Indonesia, government also still learning. Actually, in many countries, though, especially in the new technology trend like AI, Indonesia itself, um, the government is still learning where they're going to put AI as their strategy. And I believe next August, and I mean, actually, I'm in the part on the task force from the
Mhm.
government to do the national strategic roadmap for AI. We're trying to make it AI as a strategic roadmap for everything, starting from talent, starting from the strategy in terms of the innovation, infrastructure, and the quick win, how to apply that thing to the industry itself, um, including the ethical, security, and others, something like that. These kind of things is still need a lot of involvement from many kind of parties or collaboration. In that kind of task force, there's a government, of course, from many kind of ministries.
Mhm.
There is a lot of top universities that evolving in terms of AI research, industries itself, local and multinationals, any kind of practitioner from the communities and forum and societies. So again, government, they're trying to make it this kind of strategy as a part on the regulation later on. How do they apply that things for the university? How do they teach the talent based on the university or vocational, or probably even to the elementary school or probably on a high school? So that's kind of journey. Second, how the industry applied that things and to make it commercial. Of course, related with the university, with the sorry ministry for the trade ministry, industry ministry, something like that, to make the taxation, to make that kind of investment. And how these things also apply to the ecosystem, to the communities itself, because there is a lot of communities or forum in Indonesia. There is a deep tech communities, there is AI communities, there is machine learning communities, big data, many kind of things. This is need to have the umbrella from the government itself. And I think that Indonesia, they're just starting, and it's going to be better in a
Yeah, it's
positive
better
way.
than better late than never. Well,
Yeah,
in the
that's what
UAE, they in 2017 they appointed the world's first minister
for
of
AI, right?
AI. But
Exactly,
just two
exactly.
weeks, or last week, sorry, last month actually. So the government did reshuffling on the cabinet, and they rename it into technology, because at that time when they appointed the minister of AI, and we actually questioned why specific technology, right?
Exactly.
So why don't you just expand the scope into whatever minister of emerging technologies or something like that. So the task force of AI that you are in, is it under a certain ministry or?
No, it's actually under BRIN, which is under well, the Ministry of Research actually
Okay,
built a body called BRIN.
all right. We have two more questions, but I would like to combine these two questions together. The first one coming from Ahmad Elias Dusty. What are some common benefits of AI technology? And the second one coming from Jose Lembong. How real is AI? Means computer learns by itself. or codes or develops itself, and any pilot projects running right now? So maybe you can give some example.
Well, common technology about AI actually is quite a lot. Yeah, I mean,
Common
probably
benefits. Yeah, yeah.
people can browse about that. I mean, again, actually, in the real factor and the real prototype that I created, I mean, with my teams, we do collaboration with universities in Yogyakarta called UGM, right?
Mhm.
We did a simple natural language processing called chatbot, right?
Mm.
Chatbot is not new technology. It's actually is generative text that can do the interaction, right? In the early days, probably you heard about the technology of software called SimSimi, which is application chatbot that you can interact in very funny words, something like that.
Mhm.
But in this kind of case, in Samsung and Srin, working with UGM and also Microsoft, actually we work with trying to make it more conversational bahasa Indonesia into something in terms of deep emotional. That's our research. How to do that? Actually, if you're using Line Messenger right now, if you guys using Line Messenger, try to find the official friend called Rina, RINNA, which uh, is a chatbot names. It's pretty much funny because you can probably types well a very conversational language in Bahasa Indonesia, even the language that probably not in our local Bahasa called WK.
Yeah.
It's something that people understand about that, and the machine can interact about that as well. The benefit for that things actually, we're trying to know about deep emotional, how to do
Mhm.
deep emotional. Probably you can see right now when you do messaging these days, when you're throwing WhatsApp or something like that, when between people and people each other, when they interact, sometimes they crying, sometimes they angry, something like that. This kind of emotional that I want to create on device, not on the cloud, through the chatbot.
Mm.
That's kind of research. Why? For example, this kind of benefit, I can make it and sell it to the any kind of e-commerce portal,
Customer service.
not only customer service, but also for the portal to sell their product without
Yeah,
any kind
yeah.
of people behind. So that's kind of things actually is one of this very simple common sample. Secondly, probably if you see like these days in Jakarta, Indonesia, they're trying to put a lot of electronic camera in the traffic in the
Mhm.
street, right?
Mhm.
Actually, there is a technology that using that and applied by Noteflux. It's a startups. They're trying to do like image recognition, trying to capture the plate numbers. These plate numbers will actually will connected to the data in the police. So it will be easy to recognize whether the plates are fake or the car are speeding or something like that, and recognize basically who's beyond. I mean the driver itself, the ID of the drivers. So this kind of the one of the technology that quite actually easily to be found these
Mm.
days. I
Mm.
mean, easily to be benefit. I mean, but there is quite a lot actually in deep tech or even in AI still doing under deep research. For example, actually more likely to the brain,
Mm.
especially in terms of neuroscience. In the robotics, actually, Samsung also involving these days, and even I have a new boss. My new boss actually right now is a neuroscientist. I'm quite scared with him though. Why? Because he's trying to make a brain, a human brain, into the robot, and they're trying to copy all the neural systems of the brain into the robots. So this kind of technology, it cannot be easily commercialized.
Also, there is ethical implication on that as well, no?
Indeed, indeed. But
Right?
again, for the scientists, for the research purposes, actually, it's very challenging.
Yeah.
Why? Because this technology is actually it's trying to portray the mechanism of the motoric mechanism into something called the logic algorithm. So this
Mhm.
kind of things actually it's make I mean Samsung is trying to be a futuristic in terms of research for that kind of area, especially in the AI part.
So we've got the last question before we close this webinar from our friend again, William Layadi. William, how are you doing? I haven't seen William for ages.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, he's got a question. Where do you see Indonesian position in developing resources equipped with practical knowledge to support deep tech adoption compared to other countries? And how can the task force that you mentioned earlier help take the learning and expediting the pace?
Thank you, William. We just starting actually. Indonesia. I mean, Indonesia actually is very in the very seeding period though, in the very seeding stage. Why I can say like that in terms of like transferring the knowledge itself from the industry to the university, vice versa. You know, the emerging country like us, like Indonesia, university following the industry trend. But the opposite happened in most of the developed countries. University standard is being used by the industry. For example, like MIT, like Berkeley, something like Stanford. Even like I'm using the standard of KB, knowledge-based construction, KBC, that developed by Stanford, and it's open source, right? So that kind of standard actually is being practically used by many big industries itself though, and researchers. So in terms of like our academics, our university there is a big gap between university and industry, but I believe it's evolving to be a positive way, which is they are growing right now. Most of the university realize that they need to ensure they have collaboration with the university, the industry, how to make the industry trends not being prepared by the student itself. So there is an academic involvement that involving the industry to learn about the back to the fundamental science, for example, algorithm or something like that, and also the use cases. And about the task force that when you mentioned in here, the task force actually it's a collaboration task force. The government is just only the umbrella to prepare the plates for the people, the expert from the university, industry, and communities to, I mean, share the ideas how the AI strategy need to be put in place in Indonesia with many the pillars over there, pillars from the talents, pillars from the ethics, pillars from the infrastructure, pillars from the strategic quick win, and pillars basically for the security. So these kind of 5 pillars actually would conclude about what, how, and when Indonesia want to apply artificial intelligence. But again, as I said, AI probably these days can be as a trend in terms of even in deep tech, right? But in the next 10 years or probably more or even sooner, this terminology or jargon, it can be evolved.
Yeah.
So that's happened probably in UAE. Novel, you mentioned about this Minister of AI. Somehow it shifted right now, right? It's changed.
Yeah.
So it can be happening anywhere. So
Yeah.
even in Asia, though.
Yeah. So talking about university, there's also an opportunity to, since William was asking about how the task force can actually speed up the process of this deep tech adoption. So one way is through the technology transfer from the university into the industry, from their knowledge and research, IPs, patents, and everything to be translated to commercialization through the industry or through startups. So I just want to share one comment now after you answer the question from Anti about data. So Anti said, I totally get it about endurance. Also true about the analyst endurance. I heard a quote recently that data wrangling is 90% anger management.
Yeah, exactly. Right, correct. Just to be
Talking
patient,
about,
Andy.
the messy data. Yeah, that's a very good quote, Antti. Thank you for sharing. Well, I guess it's a wrap up for us. And then before we go, I would like to ask Alfred for some closing remark, please.
Thank you, Novel. Final words from me, actually. The future's already in here. It just not evenly distributed now.
Hmm.
So that's the things. So it's back to us how to make it happen.
Short and simple, but very
Yeah.
powerful message. Alfred, thank you so very much for your time today and for sharing your valuable insights and thoughts. Really, really appreciate it, man. And thank you also, everyone, for tuning in and for sharing with us this conversation. Please stay safe and healthy and see you in our next webinars. All right, so bye for now, guys.
Bye.